Hello and welcome to Short Points, where we share thoughts on the Sabbath School lessons. We're starting a new quarter and a new study with an interesting focus: education.
And nowadays, information/knowledge is everything. We pay for it, we work for it, we invest time to acquire knowledge and education. But whose education is worth our money? Or should I say, whose education is worth our lives? Isn't it the education and the knowledge of the one who has created everything around us? This coming quarter, we're going to be talking about the basis of education. Without a doubt, we know that the education in cosmology, biology, chemistry, math, social science, economics, finance, engineering, and etc. are very important for our existence today. However, what is in the base of this all knowledge? What are the guideline principles of acquiring and applying knowledge? The spiritual writer Ellen G. White tells us that love, the basis of creation and of redemption, is the basis of true education.
Education is such a big topic. It's not just about degrees, it involves discussions around morale, real values, what is really important, what makes a difference. I'm sure that you have some opportunities for important, deeper reflections. So let's start. The author of the study guide takes the usual approach of most of the Sabbath School lessons, starting at the beginning of human history. Education in the Garden of Eden.
And it is September. We're just at the beginning of the 2020 school year, with all the challenges of COVID-19 and all new instructions and regulations to abide with when we send our children back to the classrooms. This week's study, first for this quarterly, is about the classroom setup. It's about the system of education, and it's about the instructor that we need to listen to. Unfortunately, Genesis reports that Adam and Eve switched teachers, switched their instructor. The classroom was the same, the Garden of Eden. The material as well that they had to learn from, which was the nature around them, the creation, was the same also. However, the serpent was the new substitute teacher who became the head teacher later on, or principal. And what new did Adam and Eve learn?
There are so many big points in this lesson. God didn't create an AI, artificial intelligence. He didn't use machine learning as we use today, and we think that we are so advanced. It's amazing how God created man, Adam, and He put him immediately in charge of the Garden of Eden. This blows my mind away as an approach. Yes, it was under different circumstances that we can't really understand today, but it does bring an important perspective about being given a responsibility as we learn. But then we also see deception, getting a different twist of the facts and the disaster that it creates. We also see that not all knowledge is actually good, and that we have the power to choose not to know certain things, like knowing good and evil, for example.
Yeah, the new thing that Adam and Eve learned was that not all knowledge is good for their life, but they also learned one more thing, that knowledge transforms. And we read in Genesis chapter 3 verse 7 that says, then after they got this new knowledge, then their eyes of both of them were opened and they realized they were naked. They learned that faith and obedience was what they ignored in their study material, so they did very poorly on choosing and making a decision. As a consequence, they lost the Garden of Eden and they lost their teacher and mentor, the intimacy that they had with God. They lost the best classroom and the best teacher that they could have ever had.
Knowledge and information is a responsibility. What do we do with it? The lesson reflects on, what did God say? What did the serpent say that God said? What did Eve remember that each one of them said? And what did Adam do when he knew what everyone else has said? It's amazing, but we do suffer so much from the same issues today as well. We really need to find time to spend with the teacher and educator who not only understands the problem better than anyone else, but who also has vested everything personally to help us with it.
Education and knowledge gained from the fall in the Garden of Eden on is about relocating back into the same classroom, reuniting back with the original mentor and teacher. This time it's through prayer, service, and studying the Word. Jesus has provided all the means of restoration, and our work is only to learn from Him, and our mission is to help others to learn from Him. There was a big lie in the Garden of Eden. You will not die. You will be like God to know good and evil. We were like God. We were in His image. So education, since then, has the purpose of learning and rebuilding His image and character back in us.
The lesson makes another last point at the end of the lesson, and it's about authority. Progress, as we know it, is fueled by challenging the status quo, by not accepting limitations and by challenging all restrictions. But when we lose respect for authority, there are other forces that come into play. Hopefully, you have found some food for thoughts from these reflections. Join us again next week to continue with the lesson, The Family.